Hello, Sofa Squad, and welcome back to the damn sofa. That's my damn sassy sidekick, Mr. Damn Roscoe P. Coltrane. My damn name is Paul, and today we are reading this damn tragic book by Chad damn Daybell, and we are on chapter 9, y'all. We are almost done. I'm not gonna jinx it, y'all, but I will say this: we are 81% of the book, y'all. We are almost done. Now we're at chapter 9. It's called Beware of Meddling Ghost, God help us. And there's 21 minutes left in this chapter. So I don't know if the book's done after this. Like, it could be, I don't know, right? So I'm not going to look ahead because I don't want to jinx it. We're just going to see what happens. We're going to press record and just see where things go. So before we get started, thank you everybody who makes this channel possible. I greatly appreciate it. Literally would not be here without you. I thank you, Roscoe thanks you, and the damn sofa thanks you. Also, don't forget to show some love for Roscoe. Check out his little commercial that he did. It's very cute. He took it very seriously. Very, very serious. It was in my first Amber Heard video. I'll drop a thing down below in the description and maybe put a card up here. But check that out. Show him some love. See what you think about it. Let us know in the comments section. Anyways, so this is 2 Feet in the Grave. Y'all already know. You already know. Now, so last video I asked y'all, like, what should I do about reading a book, doing this, doing that, da-da-da. I had a lot of different answers out there, and literally what I think I'm going to do is this. So I've been looking at the, what do you call it? I think what I would do is this, is I literally would probably start a totally different channel. Maybe like Stories from the Sofa, keeping up with the sofa theme, but not like reporting live from the sofa, but just something with the word sofa in it. And honestly, and you tell me what you think in the comment section, because this is how, I don't know how y'all listen to these stories. For me, a lot of times I listen to things like this, you know what I mean, at nighttime. I might just do it with all the lights turned off and literally just my phone, so that if you're listening to it at night, it's not like some bright light or whatever, but you let me know. And it's just me sitting here reading. Now again, some of them could be funny, some of them could be this or that, but like I said, there's like a lot of like out of print stuff. I did find an actual true crime what do you call it? One that I could read legally or whatever, on here, and it sounded interesting, so I was like, that could be fun. I don't know how often I do it. It might be like a weekly thing or whatever. I don't know. I mean, this is pretty much what I do with the Chad Daybell thing right now. It's like once a week. Definitely probably take a break from the Chad Daybell things and then do another one after that and just see. Because this is like, oh my gosh. I mean, again, I'm enjoying getting a snapshot of his stuff. But there's other stuff I want to read too. So what I would probably do is this, and tell me what you think in the comments. So just create a separate channel for it, right? This would play into algorithm stuff, all that kind of stuff. Just have a separate channel for it, because then you're getting into, it's not really like a true crime thing. You see where I'm going with this? It's like, it could be a separate thing. I mean, it would probably be true crime in nature or a mystery, but it's not like this kind of content, right? Create a separate channel. Have the backdrop just dark, right? It would just be me and my phone reading, you know, nothing major. So that way, if somebody's listening to it at nighttime, it's not distracting, whatever, let me know about that. And then I would put a few examples of books up of like, hey, these are some things that I could do or whatever. Like, let me know what you think for maybe your first thing, and I could record several episodes. Because one thing I think we've seen here is, once I start reading, I mean, it's hard to get through a lot of it. This is one thing because it's like, oh my God, are you kidding me? But I don't want to hastily get through it. I'm just joking. I had to do that. So anyways, let me know what you think about that in the comment section. Anyways, let's get started. So again, it's called Beware of Meddling Ghost. I absolutely believe in ghosts. Well, that's not going to serve him well, then, I can tell you that. I hope they haunt the living shit out of him. Okay, however, I don't picture them as spooky apparitions in white sheets, but as disembodied people, because that's what they are. I think the popular movies Ghost and The Sixth Sense came pretty close to reality in depicting what happens to dead people who don't go straight to a different realm. Some of the ghosts I dealt with act as if they have some unfinished business to take care of before moving on, such as Patrick Swayze's ghost character. And wasn't that such a damn good movie, y'all? Oh, God bless his soul. God, Patrick Swayze, that is. Others seem to not know they are Others seem to not know they are dead, such as Bruce Willis's character in The Sixth Sense. I also think there is a third group of spirits who realize they are dead, but they don't know how to move on to the next level. So they hang out in familiar places, such as where they were buried. Y'all, I think we're getting into some damn zombie stuff. I mean, this is what I'm talking about. This could be triggering. Some people truly are... Oh, I thought the camera turned off. I was like, what? I mean, deer in headlights. Okay. Some people are truly more receptive to these so-called ghosts. One lady I know is very sensitive. Wherever she sets foot in the cemetery, she gets extremely jittery. She will say, I can feel them closing in, and things like that. She doesn't visit the cemetery much anymore. That's okay. I mean, we could have actually gone on. I wanted to know more about that. Again, I'm very hypercritical of this. You would think I'm some damn New York literary agent going through this. Please hold. And here's the other thing. Like, if I read, actual decent literature, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and rip it up like this. I mean, this is easy to rip up, right? I mean, come on. This just beckons for it, right? Anyways, and it's fun too, right? It's Chad Daybell's book. I mean, my God. It's the least we can do. Okay, so there's another little section here. It's called We're Not Alone, and They Aren't Aliens. My God, I can't roll my eyes hard enough at this stuff. I mean, Jesus. Okay, I'm not as sensitive as that woman is to the spirits, but after becoming the sexton, I mean, Jesus. I never thought I would run into a scenario I was like, he is giving sextons a bad name. I never thought that's a sentence I would use in my lifetime. And here I find myself being like, this is literally, if it's possible to give sextons a bad name, Chad Daybell has done it. Okay? Anyways. But after becoming the sexton, I became more aware of what I called the shadows. Nearly every day at the cemetery, I caught unexplained movements out of the corner of my eye. At first, I thought my mind was playing tricks on me, but it happened so frequently that it became commonplace. For example, there was a certain tree in the middle of the cemetery where someone seemingly moved behind it each time I went by, almost like a child playing hide and seek with me. Visitors to the cemetery had many such experiences near that tree. The next section is, hey Eddie, can you lock up tonight? The most tangible ghostly experiences I had as a sexton occurred after we buried a guy named Eddie. He'd been known in the town as a vagrant and petty thief. His burial spot wasn't far from my office, and almost immediately after his funeral, I started noticing weird things happening. The first thing I noticed was the window in the women's restroom would be opened about 2 inches each morning when I'd come to work. I knew for certain I'd locked the doors and latched the windows. The biggest tip-off was that these weird events were supernatural. The biggest tip-off that these weird events were supernatural came when I found a rusted walkway gate had been closed. I had tried several times to loosen the rusted lock so I could close the gate, but it wouldn't budge. But 4 days after Eddie's burial, I noticed the gate was closed, with that rusted lock still in place. I still can't comprehend how he did that. Then 2 days later, the combination lock in our equipment compound was open when I arrived. This was peculiar. Since I always drove by and double-checked it when I left at night, after it would happen 3 times within a week, I strongly suspected Eddie was still picking locks despite being dead. Okay. As I left work that day, I tucked a piece of plastic around the lock in a certain way so I could tell if someone touched it. You know what this reminds me of? If y'all saw The Color Purple when it was like, I done rigged that mailbox so I could tell if somebody's been messing with it. You know what I'm talking about? Chad's like, I done rigged that cemetery gate so I could tell somebody's been messing with it. Okay, let's go back. I just had a Color Purple flashback. Loved that movie. Oh my God. Literally have seen it hundreds of times. Okay. That night I went to the store for my wife at about 9 p.m. Then I drove to the cemetery. Okay, sorry. All this stuff just came through on my phone. That night I went to the store for my wife at about 9 p.m. God bless Tammy. Then I drove to the cemetery to check the lock. It was fastened securely, just as I had left it. As you can guess by now, when I arrived early the next morning, the lock was undone. Also, the plastic was still in place, but the gate even had been pushed open for a few inches. I wasn't very amused by this ghostly prankster. The biggest surprise came moments later when I checked the shed next to my office. I always secured it with a large lock that required a key, but not only was the shed unlocked, but the lock itself was now hooked on a latch 2 feet above the door. By this point, I wasn't scared. I was mad. I figured Eddie was nearby, probably pleased I had noticed his handiwork. So I turned around and shouted, "Hey Eddie, listen to me. I'm impressed with your skills, but you're going to get me in trouble. What if someone sees the open lock and steals the backhoe? I would get fired." I paused for a few seconds, and then I added, "Eddie, you don't belong here. There's a better place for you. Look around you. Go toward the light and don't come back." Then I stomped into my office. I never had another problem with locks. I mean, my God, literally stay off my lawn, but he sent damn goes back to the light. I just, this kind of stuff, I mean, and who knows, but I'm just like, that's all it took. You see these damn TV shows based on this damn poltergeist where they have to get people coming in throwing tennis balls and shit in places, to get stuff to happen, but he just has to yell out, "Go towards the light," and then it all happens. Okay, got it, plays all. Okay, the next thing is called Keeping Me Company. Come and knock on my door. I don't know what I busted into that one. If you know what that's from, drop it in the comments. Anyway. Okay. Okay. It was when I was alone in the cemetery office, usually on a frigid, foggy days, that I could most often sense otherworldly visitors. On such days, I would catch up on my record keeping, and it rarely took long before I noticed the hair on my back. The hair on the neck plays out. Oh my God, the sentence. Okay. On such days, I would catch up on my record-keeping, and it rarely took long before I noticed the hair on the back of my neck standing on end, as if someone was leaning over my shoulder watching what I wrote down, period. There, my God, I don't even know if it's his sentence as much as I just can't say it, right? It's kind of late it's 1:30 in the damn morning when I'm filming this, y'all. No wonder. Just so side note, it's a Saturday night. I had to work all day and we have to do all this stuff tomorrow, and I have to film another video in the morning. And so I fell asleep on the sofa and slept for hours with Roscoe and woke up and I was like, I'm wide awake. And so I was like, I better go ahead and film stuff for next week because I have to work basically every single day. So just a little bit of that insider information into the behind the scenes filming schedule. So it's 1:30, so that's why I'm kind of like, I can't read right now. Anyways, let's keep going. Okay, so we did that. We read that. Did that. Okay. So when the cemetery was deserted, I could almost guarantee my ghostly friends would migrate over to the office to see what I was up to. I could sense when they were nearby, and I knew they didn't mean any harm. But I had to smile each time I found a pen had moved about 6 inches from where I left it, or that the page of my day planner was already turned when I arrived the next day. That must have taken them a lot of effort. Now, here's my whole damn thing. Here's somebody who has literally spit in the face of grieving loved ones and all this stuff. I'd be personally damn scared of the ghost. I mean, I would be afraid of what they would have to say because I'm just like, I don't think they would like you. You've sat here and ridiculed them all, and their family, their surviving family members. They probably don't have anything nice to say. I mean, that's just my thoughts. Okay, I didn't sense any women among them. It was more like 5 men who you'd find hanging out in a coffee shop. I don't know what these spirits did when I wasn't around. Maybe they each patrolled a cemetery section. But there were days when I had to say, guys, get out of here. I'm trying to get some work done. They thankfully obliged. Thankfully. Thankfully, that counts, right? They thankfully obliged. That's kind of like an odd one, right? Anyways, it's not my fault is the next section. Not every lingering spirit in the cemetery is friendly. We're going to talk in a minute about this now. Because, again, let's talk about it now. Notice how he has this whole... So now we know, that he had this whole system, and it was like, someone's gone dark, and this and that, and blah, 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 right? And, the zombie this, and the zombie that. Again, do we think that this stuff is real? I don't, right? Do we think that he believed it? I can't see how he did, but with seeing this kind of stuff, which, this is more... This is getting into the talk of do you believe in afterlife and all that kind of stuff, basic, right? But Chad always takes it to this next level of, of course he's going to have encounters with spirits, right? He's the type that would. Do we think that he personally did? Well, who knows? But he's going to, of course, say he did. But these beginnings, he is going to always be someone who has these very particular things happen to him, right? We've kind of figured out that he steals other people's stories and pretends that they happen to him, right? So that's kind of what I'm getting at, where I'm just you see the beginnings of this, of he has access to this other world stuff. He has this ability to interact with these spirits, so on and so forth. So let's keep going. Not every lingering spirit in the cemetery is friendly. There was a grave where I sensed terrible anger, and I knew why. See what I'm talking about? The problems began when a man got fed up with his wife and shot her to death. Here we go. Then he killed himself. The two were buried side by side, and that was a very tense funeral. We even had police officers on hand because the tension between the two families was ugly. The wife's family didn't want her to be buried near him. Can't really blame them. But his family paid for the burials and wanted it that way. Okay, wait, let me put this together for a second. So he took his wife out and then took himself out. But the wife's family didn't want her to be buried with him, but his family paid for the burials and wanted it that way. Why? Maybe they'll tell us, okay? Anyway, whenever I was near that grave, they don't tell us, so let's talk about it. Let's figure it out for a second. Let's try and snoop a little bit. So these are the things that I'm just I guess everything's different, but I'm why would they want that? Maybe they couldn't afford to do that. Maybe they couldn't afford to, and they were we want you to pay for it over here. And the family was no, we're going to do it this way, but why would you do that? I don't know. Anyways. Okay. I'm trying to figure out other people's problems. We don't even know if it's real or not. You gotta be lying, right? Anyways, so whenever I was near that grave, I could sense the husband was still around, and he was still as unhappy as on the day he killed himself. I have read near-death accounts where people who unalive themselves, victims, are seen following their families around, begging for forgiveness. They haven't moved on to the next level. This right here, y'all. I knew the guy wasn't mad at me, but he knew I could sense him, and he wanted a listening ear. He would plead his case to me, saying, it's not my fault that I shot her. She made me do it. Yes, I told him to go to the light, but he didn't go anywhere. There were times when I sensed he wasn't there, but he often arrived a few seconds later. I started tidying up his grave with a poor tormented soul. And it ends right there. Why did he put in there, I started tidying up his grave? That's just weird. Anyways, there's no tree root is the next section. There's one section of the cemetery that is more elevated than the rest. I always felt a peaceful feeling there, and I sensed it was a sacred spot to the Native Americans who once inhabited the region. My feelings were confirmed one day as we dug a grave in that area. When we had dug down about 4 feet, I started feeling very disturbed. Something was definitely wrong. I finally stopped the backhoe and said to Tony, "Is everything alright? I'm feeling strange." He looked at me and said, "I feel weird too." We couldn't figure out why though, so I resumed digging. When I swung the backhoe bucket around again to put the next scoop of soil into the dump truck, I got my answer. Jutting out of the soil in the truck bed was what appeared to be a long stick, but I knew better. "Tony, go look at that stick," I called out. He walked over and grabbed it, then dropped it immediately. "It's a leg," he shouted. I turned off the backhoe and put my gloves on. We spent the next few minutes recovering ancient body parts. I then hopped onto the grave I then hopped down into the grave and cringed to see... I then hopped down into the grave and cringed to see I had excavated an old skeleton from the ribs down. Interestingly, the body was buried in a north-south direction, as some native tribes once buried their dead. I also found a bright blue cloth around his shoulders, and I got the impression this person had been a great leader or chief, especially since he was buried at the highest point in the area. All we could do was take the bones we recovered and bury them next to the parts we hadn't disturbed. We shifted the new grave over about 2 feet to avoid digging up any more ancient bones, and we covered the skeleton the best we could. Once we were done, a calm feeling came over me, as if an ancient spirit understood it had been an accident, and he just wanted us to keep all of his bones in the same place. The next day when we filled in that grave, we used the exact dirt we had taken out, just in case we missed a bone or two. I wanted to keep that ancient chief happy. So now, again, here's the thing with Chad that we constantly see is, it's like these Chad, Melanie Gibbs, all these people that we see, they so bad want to be in touch with like this higher authority, this higher calling, this higher being, like whatever, right? From very early on, right? And they want to be special. They want to have a connection that no one else has. You know, they want that, and they want to claim that, right? Like, I felt different as I was, vandalizing the grave. I got a feeling that this was special, and I'm just like, but just all throughout this, right? And it's so bizarre. But also knowing what we know about them, it's not bizarre, right? Because they're all a bunch of like narcissists, right? Okay, anyways. Bad vibes. And that's the name of it, but it's also bad vibes, right? There were other parts of the cemetery where bad feelings were very strong. I can tell you where they probably generated from, his damn office, right? That was the mothership of them right there that they all came out of. Just like a wah, wah pulsating from his damn office. Okay. I have yet to determine why, but there is one corner of the cemetery that I always had a strange feeling about. Although there is no logical reason for it, it was as if someone was watching me, and it made the hair on my arms stand up. I hadn't ever told anyone about it, though. Then one day our secretary brought me a burial order and said, "I hate that part of the cemetery, it gives me the creeps." I looked at the paper, and sure enough, the burial order was in the exact area that gave me chills. I was surprised at her statement, and I explained to her the feelings I got in that spot. She just grimaced and actually shivered from head to toe. "It feels like someone is playing with my hair when I'm over there," she said. "I hate it." Now the next section is my employee saw a spirit. Yeah. Most days at the cemetery were fairly mundane, but every once in a while we had ghostly experiences. In this case, I didn't see anything, but my two co-workers did. I'll call them Derek and Sam to protect their privacy. They've told the story many times, but it has been a few years and maybe they're tired of talking about it. We were filling a grave in a part of the cemetery where many original settlers were buried. Once the vault was in the ground, I drove the backhoe to our dirt pile a few hundred yards away. When I returned with a scoop of dirt, I saw Derek and Sam both backing away. When I returned with a scoop of dirt, I saw Derek and Sam both backing away from the grave. Sam was pointing at something, and Derek actually hid behind Sam. At that point, the backhoe was close enough that they turned to look at me. Something had clearly spooked them. I dumped the dirt in the grave and then turned off the machine and hopped out. Derek and Sam started shoveling the dirt as if nothing had happened, but then Sam asked me, Did you see him too? What do you mean? I asked. They looked at each other in surprise. Sam stammered for a moment before walking to a spot about 10 feet from the grave. There's a boy standing right here, Sam said. He was watching us. Derek said, yeah, he was probably 8 years old, about 4 feet tall. He had on some clothes like he was from the Great Depression, but he vanished when you got closer with the backhoe. As he said that, I felt a little freaked out as well. Could you see through him? I asked. They both shook their heads. I thought he was a real kid at first, Derek said. He had dark hair, but his skin looked kind of gray. He stood there for at least 30 seconds. Oh, where are we at? He actually looked kind of mad, Sam added. I was glad he disappeared when you drove back over there. We discussed that boy many times during the rest of the summer. The interesting thing to me is that both Derek and Sam saw him. Okay, there it is. I'm rejecting the book. We actually got through a lot of it for my body, didn't it? Shocking, since it's so late at night that I'm reading this, that my body's rejecting it. And it might be that I'm scared of this part. Kind of scares me, right? I checked the cemetery records, and there were 3 young boys buried in that area who died in the 30s. So maybe one of them just wanted to stop by and see how things were going. So the next part's called Don's Remarkable Story. I became friends with a frequent cemetery visitor named Don. He was in his 70s. And his wife, Karen, had passed away 2 years earlier. He would visit her grave often, and he would even help me out sometimes with the burial. Don was a very happy person, but he told me after his wife died, he became a bitter, broken man. As we got to be close friends, he told me his story. Karen had died of cancer, and she had suffered greatly during the last months of her life. Don had taken care of her every day, and when she died, his grief basically incapacitated him. He told me the only reason he got out of bed each day after Karen passed away was to drive to the cemetery. Then one day while at Karen's grave, Don heard her voice. She told him she was doing fine in heaven and that he needed to get back to living a normal life again. She said his grief was actually hindering her on the other side, and she received permission to speak to him. She told him she works as a secretary there, helping keep things in order. This information turned Don's grief into happiness. Karen has continued to communicate with him. One of their daughters died unexpectedly, and Karen assured Don that their daughter was now working with her in a similar capacity. Don looks forward to reuniting with them both someday. He says that those secretaries probably needed someone to empty the trash cans once in a while. Yeah. Truly scared. There is an actual mood change in a cemetery once the sun sets. I wouldn't necessarily call it sinister, but certainly it is more frightening and intense. Despite all the time I spent in the cemetery, if I had to go out there at night, I was definitely on edge. Every sound made me jump, but my scariest experience in the cemetery happened in broad daylight. One woman's grave was well known for being supposedly haunted, and I avoided it. But it so happened that a lady died and would be buried in the plot next to the haunted grave. In order to get the new burial in the right spot, I needed to use one of our metal probing rods to locate the haunted grave. I should have waited until a coworker was with me, but I didn't. I've gone over the next few seconds in my mind 1,000 times, but there's no denying that when that probing rod hit the haunted vault, a jolt of electricity shot through my body. I dropped the rod and just stood there, unable to believe what I had just felt. I grabbed the rod one more time and probed the ground again. This time when I hit the vault, it felt like somebody shoved me viciously in the chest. I dropped the rod and took off running toward my office with what I considered to be a demon right on my tail. I couldn't see this otherworldly creature, but I felt it clawing at me as it tried to knock me down. My body was covered in goosebumps, and I was praying aloud all the way. My office was several hundred yards away, but I covered the distance in record time. I was honestly terrified. One of my teenage workers came out of the office, and the demon thankfully disappeared. My employee approached me and said, "Man, you look pale. Are you all right?" I nodded and decided not to tell him what happened. In fact, I only told a handful of people about this experience for a long time, but it was very real. Now, this next part's underlined, so let's see what that means. I've also decided that whatever attacked me wasn't the actual spirit of the haunted grave's occupant, but something more sinister that had been drawn there through improper rituals. Interesting. That's why, very interesting. I've heard of people doing satanic rites in cemeteries, and all I can say is that if they knew what they were messing with, they would run the other way. One girl I went to high school with experimented with that stuff one weekend at the cemetery, and whatever happened to her that night altered her whole personality. She changed from being bubbly, happy girl to being a basket case. Could this possibly have happened to him? If you take part in such things in or out of a cemetery, you are foolish and will certainly regret ever doing so. I mean, y'all, this is very interesting here. Okay. Anyway, we still had to dig that grave the next day. I moved the grave as far from the haunted grave as I could. I wasn't going to risk the chance of another supernatural encounter. We didn't have any more problems. Excuse me. Though, I figured I unleashed that demon and now it hopefully was gone for good. Warm feeling is the next. In direct contrast to that experience, one of my most memorable events of life occurred when a neighbor lady I had really admired was buried. She was a true saint, and after her graveside service, the family was gone and the vault guy hadn't arrived yet. So it was just me and her at her graveside. A warm feeling filled my heart, and I knew I was in the presence of an angel. My friend was telling me goodbye and that she was moving on to a better place. That feeling stayed with me and it gave me hope. I believe that for the vast majority of us, death will be a pleasant improvement over our current situation. And that's the end of the chapter. And that's where we'll stop. And just on cue. Okay, yes, 91. So the next one we're going to do should be it's chapter 10. It's called A Few Final Tips. God help us. The ritual thing in this one stood out to me for this one. Again, we didn't hear too many things in this one of him, like, insulting people, which is shocking, but his need to feel a connection, his need to feel I have a connection to spirit world, I have access to that realm, that ability to see that ability to connect, that kind of a thing, I find interesting. You know what I'm saying? Because again, it's especially knowing what we know now, right? Because he's the type of person that claims to have all this, like, well, I have my, list of, the dark people and the not dark people and the zombies and the not zombies and all this stuff, right? I mean, you can see that this has been going on for quite some time, and it's probably just finesse along the way. So there's that. If you're still watching, drop some footprints for Roscoe, drop some sofas for the sofa, and drop some hearts for all of Chad and Lori's victims. And the victims out there for other cases and whatnot too. So I hope you're doing well out there. Thank you for hanging in there. We've only got one more chapter to go and we'll be done with, and we can not try and figure out this mess of Chad Daybell, because we'll never figure that out. And I think if we did, it would break our brains, right? Anyways, thank you very much for watching. Thank you for making the Sofa Squad possible. I really appreciate it. And let me know about what you think about the questions I asked in the beginning. I'll try and pin them up because I've already forgot what they are. But anyways, that's it. I love you guys. And until we meet back at that damn sofa with that damn sassy sidekick, and my damn name is Paul, I'll talk to y'all soon.